Hi, Stuart Bruce here, and I am the Spare Time Property Investor. In these podcasts, I'm going to share tips, tricks and lessons that I've learned and will hopefully help you, especially if you're still working the 9 to 5. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spare Time Property Investor podcast. Thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate your continued support and I really hope you're getting value from these episodes. Today I interview Sam Demuth from Fox Miller Property. She's at the start of her property investment journey, but alongside learning and networking around property investment, but she's also been retraining as a mortgage broker and is just about to step out of her previous corporate job. She's really focused about new build developments with a focus on sustainability, ecological impact and creating homes with shared communal spaces for the community to enjoy. So fantastic to speak to Sam about her journey so far and also looking forward to what she'll be achieving in the coming years. Before we get into it, I just want to say, have you seen the latest issue of our free newsletter? You'll find the link in our bio on our Instagram page, CoLivIt, or go to colivit.co.uk to find all of the issues. Also, if you want to know more about how we could help you add HMOs to your portfolio, just DM us on Instagram or send an email to info@colivit.co.uk and we'll arrange a call back. But not wanting to waste any more time, let's get to the interview with Sam Demuth. So thanks again, Sam, for coming on to the podcast. First off, it'd be fantastic if you could introduce yourself and let me know what you're up to in property.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I'm very surprised and very happy to be here. So very grateful. Thank you.
No worries.
So my name's Sam, and I am currently, I suppose, on a quest of many kind of like different business avenues that all kind of stem to one big main goal. But yeah, I'm originally from South London. I grew up in Croydon, and recently moved down to the woods. So I'm proper out in the sticks now, which is lovely. And my property wise, I'd say I'm relatively classified as quite in the early stages of what I want to achieve out of property, basically. So I think when I first so I'll just step back a bit. So my kind of like background in history, me and my husband did I'd say a flip, but it was done on our own main residence.
Okay.
I suppose that's where we kind of like got started. And then since then, it's been a bit more of a quest and a lifestyle change of where I want to be on the property side. So I haven't really got ambition to like grow a huge portfolio, or do any HMOs. Mine's a little bit different in that I want to get into new builds and predominantly like small urban villages that have kind of a sustainable and eco kind of edge to that with community at heart. So my like journey so far has been pretty much in the networking, education, building my key people and tribe, as it were, who's going to help me get there.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Before we get into more detail about the specific strategies and bits and pieces like that, I just want to say congratulations because you're through to the final 20 applicants for the property graduate, which sounds very cool. Have you heard anything more about that?
That was a really short kind of spur of the moment opportunity that presented itself. And like a couple of years ago, I said, right, whatever I'm doing, well, it's the beginning of lockdown actually, whatever I'm going to do, I'm just going to say yes to what is ever presented in front of me. And I'm part of the Property Sisters. They have like a smaller offset group called the Little Sisters. And Helen Chorley, who is one of the judges on the Property Elevator, they're doing a spin-off show, which is kind of like The Apprentice, which was the property graduate. And she just said, this has come up, just what have you got to lose? So I was like, yeah, what have I got to lose? So put in an application, got through to the last 20. And then last week we had our face-to-face interviews on the screen. It was, oh God, I was highly embarrassed, but it was really good experience. Very long day, got to meet some really good people. And I like the people that I got through to the 20 are like, wow, doff my hat to myself to get even that far, because they have got buckets of experience already. So it was Thank you, yeah, for bringing that up here. And I can't say if I got through or not.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
But what an amazing thing to get involved with, and yeah, what an experience, like you're saying.
No, yeah. So the winner gets an opportunity to do their own development, but JV, and have up to £1 million plus an extra £1 million to do the developments. Yeah, it's a really good opportunity, especially for myself, who's just in the early stages of all this.
No, that's amazing. Cool. Okay, so getting back to it then. So talk me through how you're managing to balance everything, because you are, and we clarified this before we came on, you have been working as an account manager for a big tech company. You've also been retraining as a mortgage broker, I believe, and then you've also got the networking and skilling up and everything like that with the property investment. So how are you balancing everything? Because that sounds like a very, very busy schedule.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's one of those things where I'd say like complete discipline. Lockdown was a bit of a godsend in that respect, because I had all this opportunity, and while I say time, I didn't really have the time, but I had focus to just get on and do something. And it also like presented itself like, oh my God, I need to change what is going on now. I was in this, well, what you say, a 9 to 5, but it was a 9 to 5. You're doing, or sometimes double hours that week, raising 2 small children at the same time. So juggling was pretty full on, if I'm honest with you. But I had my employer, which I actually leave next week, was really supportive, and they've known from a very long time, I've been there 10 years, that I've always wanted to kind of pursue, I've got this like driving me to work for myself and do my own thing, do my own projects. So they've known that for quite a few years. And when I said that I want to be leaving, they were really supportive. They knocked down my hours to part-time, so I could start to like juggle the transition of building up my small client bank to get enough for me to make that transition jump from employed, which I've been employed since I left school at like 17, and then to self-employment of running my own mortgage business. And then, like you say, the property side as well. So it's been pretty stressful, if I'm honest with you, but I'd say like the key things that got me through are planning my days, as in like I might just have an hour in the morning or an hour in the evening to get on and knuckle down on one of like my business ventures, and then just building time for family or downtime, like getting out in nature and going for a walk. But it's been a slow burner, like a 1% like increase. One of those. It's not just been I've made the jump and it's happened overnight. It's been like 18 months progress.
So is that 18 months of working part-time, or?
So I went part-time, 18 months since I first decided to hand in my notice with my job, and start to make the transition to kind of retrain as a mortgage broker. So I used to be a mortgage broker back in 2008, 2009, when the first crash happened.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so, and then I went into tech from there and stayed there ever since. So it was a complete career change. And then came back to, I decided that obviously I wanted to pursue this career in property, but I didn't have, it was going to be a very long journey, and I knew that. And I thought I need to do something where if I'm going to be consumed by a day job, I'd like it to be within the industry. And to me, that was like the quickest step that I could do, where I'm working for myself, and I'm gonna be able to build a good like financial pot based on my like work ethics, I suppose, and what I can do to achieve it.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. If when you're transitioning from a completely different industry into property, if you can find a way to work a day job that's related to property, absolutely makes sense. So and obviously you had that experience of working as a mortgage broker years ago, so that's fantastic. You were able to kind of pick that up again. Did you have to update your training from what you had before, or?
So I had to go through it's almost like 6 months of because my exams still stand, so all my qualifications, but it was like a top up of like regulations, so all like mini tests and mini exams, just to kind of obviously make sure that I'm going to be compliant. And then I got then my first few cases all had to be checked to make sure that you're obviously fully compliant, because I'm going to be working for myself ultimately. So they need to make sure that I'm going to obviously be doing my clients a good service and giving them the right advice. So yeah, that was like in between, as I said, babies and job. But yeah, I got there in the end. I'm all fully qualified now and got a small client bank, and it's good. I'm excited to see where it's going to go, because I can start to like visualize and incorporate that into what I want to do on the property side as well, and kind of almost have like a big ultimate brand that is going to kind of evolve from it. So yeah, it's quite exciting.
No, it sounds really exciting. Yeah, and again, you having that overall vision of creating this brand as well. That sounds very, very
yeah.
That sounds cool. So cool. So the main strategy you kind of talked about earlier is new build, but more with like an ecological green sort of slant on it. So talk me through that. Talk me.
Yeah. So there's a few things that I'm interested in. Like property being in one of them for many, many years, and I've also got lots of other things that I'm interested in. So I have a real interest in holistic like medicine, well-being, whether that's physical or mentally. Also, I grew up on an estate which I absolutely loved. It was a real old school estate. There was no cars. It was all kind of like shared spaces, real concrete jungle, but it had a real sense of community, lots of shared like premises that you could go and like hang and do things, and like sports centre and all that kind of stuff. And also I love just different types of like architecture, and obviously Mother Earth as well. Like I'm very much into my environmental and like organic kind of living. So I was trying to think what I could do to incorporate that, because I wanted to work in I say job, but it's going to be more of a lifestyle and like life career for myself, for my family. So I want to be doing something where I'm kind of like changing it up. I want to like disrupt the kind of industry, as it were. So my kind of like end goal vision is to create small urban villages that have lots of shared spaces, maybe shared work home kind of spaces. So obviously we've got changing needs now of what's going on after the pandemic, where people are going to be working at home a lot more. We've got the modern family where older generations live with younger generations, so the houses need to be adaptable and not just standard like 2 up 2 down. They need to have maybe a lot more space. You could have things on site that are like small community hubs and children's spaces, and having it a bit more like centered around things in the middle where your children are playing, you've got work hubs, you've got all that kind of stuff. But then from my point of view on the kind of build process, I'm really interested in using different kind of materials that are like non-standard construction, maybe that are more energy efficient, that are more sustainable, looking at the different types of construction, and then how the systems that you put into the house can then work for the environment, but also the occupants as well. So obviously we want to make it airtight. We want to make the house a healthy home. So thinking about different types of ventilation, the air purifiers that are in there, that's part of that whole system, that then go along with the heat pumps. So then you're looking at reducing energy costs. Like one of my goals would be to definitely like stamp out fuel poverty. That shouldn't be a thing of today. So there's lots of elements, and I really want to look at it from a holistic point of view and kind of bring in elements of how people live in that home. So for me, it's about an experience as well. So what are they getting out of their home, how they're living? I want them to be inspired, and it kind of be a place that they kind of cherish, whether that is going to be a house for sale or something that's going to be on social housing or you're renting. It's going to be like, it should be just the norm. So
absolutely. And you can imagine, as we try and go to zero carbon, there has to be a shift, doesn't there? There has to be more kind of visionary thinking in terms of how we're going to, where people are going to live, where people are going to rent, and also at the same time you have this real passion for community and having these shared spaces. It makes a lot of sense.
I think that we've kind of like lost our sense of community over the years. Like it's a lot, everything seems to be a lot more isolated, and obviously to have that kind of like grounded element, and it might be a while to help make that shift back to that community, but having something where there's a shared interest. So for instance, like having an allotment on site that is for everyone to look after, but almost like just preempting and getting them started with that. That means that they're all sharing like food, they're all looking after that one common thing that is going to bring them together, and food always brings people together anyway, I find. So yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like coming up with different ways of how to be a little bit different, and yeah, but kind of like satisfying those kind of like needs of mine of looking after the environment, but also like us humans as well. We are like vitally important as well.
Absolutely. So, I mean, obviously you have done a lot of research around energy efficiency and green options and stuff like that. But a lot of people who listen to this podcast will be using existing buildings. So have you got any kind of thoughts or tips or anything like that, or kind of things that people might consider when they're getting an old, say, Victorian house, to make it a little bit more efficient, a bit greener?
Yeah. So there is, I'm reading a book actually at the moment here. It's called the Eco Home Design Guide, which has got some great tips in it. It's called Principles and Practice for New Build and Retrofit. And it gives some really interesting thoughts, because you can make some really small changes to make a big difference. So like one of the, like within the built like construction industry, the like carbon emissions accounts for about 40%, which is really high. And then when you look at the like energy efficiency, like the consumption of energy within the buildings, that is like super high, and that's mainly to do with what we're using, so like the plug usage, so the appliances that we're using, and also things to do with heat loss within the home. So the main things that you can do to make a really good impact straight away would be looking at insulating your house, and making it as like all the drafts are making it as airtight as possible. That will make a huge impact straight away, because you're then reducing the heat loss from your home's heating. And then even just small things like replacing all of the light bulbs to energy efficient light bulbs, like the LEDs that they have, the consumption of them, they use a lot less energy than the standard like the normal light bulbs around these days. So little things like that, you can definitely make a big change. And I appreciate, I went to a few, there's a few courses actually, and they're free and they're online. So part of the National Self-Build Society, I think it's called, and there's the Green Homes or Green Building Store. They do online webinars for things like this, so retrofits, and to help people like investors like us make a real difference to their homes. So I would say insulation, looking at things like light bulbs, also if you're going to look at like the heating itself, obviously there's talks and rumors that gas is going to be obsolete and they're going to change the whole boiler system, but there's no changes in regulation or anything yet. It's a real hard, like murky. Haven't
they got an end date to it, like 2040 or something like that? But then there's no real kind of, I can't see.
No, there's no plan on what to do. So, and like heat pumps, whether you're looking at air source, heat pumps are at the moment quite expensive to install. And so for any person wanting to do that, the cost up front is going to be quite a huge investment. So you need to think about what the cost would be. When will I get my, kind of like when you start to earn back on it after so many years. And then there's certain things you can get. I think it's the RHI scheme from the government, where they would give you money back each month for installing something like a heat pump. So there's lots of grants and help on the government website that you can actually look at. I can send some links to put in the notes.
I was just going to ask if that would be possible. That would be amazing. And then I'll make sure it's in the description.
Yeah,
just
of
because
course.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who share your passion, or
Yeah.
maybe not share it to the extent where they're going to do all the research and things like that, but would be more than happy to do some of these things. And it's almost like capturing those people who it's like any movement, isn't it? You want to grab the people who need it to be made a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
It's a huge like research area as well. And things are changing all the time. Like the government green homes grant, that kind of like fell by the wayside, really. I
don't know what's going on with that.
It didn't make an impact at all. No.
I think that's like the second time it's been around as well. But also, you said about the courses, the webinars and things like that. I don't suppose you have links to those as well, do you?
Yes, certainly. I can share those. There's lots of free resource that I've been like how I've just basically got into it and just learned a bit more about just the build process and retrofitting. I suppose what would be really good. So another thing on that. I've started a Facebook group called the Property Development for the 21st Century, which is small and it's growing nicely. And one of the people within the group, her name's the Green Landlady, and she's got like this quest like I've got. So I'm very much new builds, but she's very much like helping the landlords and the investors to make changes to existing dwellings and very much in kind of like the social housing sector. And she's going to be doing through my group, we're going to set up a webinar. So I'll also share that, and she's going to come on and do hints and tips on what you can do to an existing dwelling to help kind of make a positive change and impact to obviously your build, the environment and your occupants. And that's kind of what you want to think about. It's not just, oh, I'm going to do this because everyone's talking about climate change now. It's like I kind of want to, you don't want to jump on the bandwagon.
But also I think it's the people who are very passionate about climate change will probably be an easy sell, won't they? So then being able to say, well, actually it's going to save you money as well, then it will broaden your appeal and get some more people in.
I think it's changing the perception of things like this as well. So but even like the whole thing about changing perception as well, I think people so if I say, oh, I'm going to start building eco homes, most people that I know who like know me, they'll be like, oh, you're going to just build like a mud hut, you hippie, and like people are going to have to like wing compost toilets. And it's like, it's not like that at all. You can have a super smart like home that is got all the technology advances in it, but it's looking at the things of how that home operates, and it's changing the perception and how you market it. And that's the kind of thing about the brand that I want to kind of like portray and get out there, is that you can live like in this really cool house where you're gonna like feel fantastic because it's super healthy for you, it's good for the environment, you've got no energy costs, you're going to be warm and comfortable in it, and you're going to have some pretty good views as well, because we're going to do some like rewilding in the gardens, and it's just going to be super cool.
Sounds great. Whenever I see any like grand designs and stuff like that, they sometimes have like an eco house, don't they? They always look very comfortable. They always look like a very kind of modern way of approaching property. So
but definitely
not a mud hut.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's bringing that, because it seems out of reach at the moment. Like you need to have a lot of money to do it as your self build, or it's just not going to be done to what someone portrays it. They want to live in a modern home, so it's about catering for that market, but obviously looking at the impacts as well.
So obviously at some point or you could be now, I don't know, but at some point you'll need people to invest in these projects. So with that perception in terms of them, people thinking that they're very expensive and stuff like that. Have you kind of looked at in terms of people investing money and stuff like that, and comparable, if it's comparable to the normal kind of standard build, and would it be that the initial kind of investor or two would have to have a real passion for eco buildings to make it worth their while, or would it make a good amount of money anyway?
So that's actually a really good question. So again, it's so that's something that I'm working on at the moment, is putting together a bit of a sustainable like vision blueprint of mine, which will incorporate a kind of pitch deck within that as well, that I can pull out, which will be for investors and how they can invest. So it will definitely obviously it's about profit. At the end of the day, when you're investing money, you want to make a tidy profit. We're looking at the new builds in comparison to a standard new build, to make it obviously fully eco. You're looking at around maybe like a 10% increase, which isn't like overly extortionate. My job will be to make sure I'm finding lands that have like real good planning gain on that. So it's all going to be about the front end and where I can make that profit. But at the end of the day, I think it will appeal to a lot of investors these days, because they're going to be making an impact to not only people's lives with this like amazing opportunity that we're going to give them, they will also be making an impact to the environment and like community. So it's going to have a real good feel good factor about it as well.
Absolutely. But from what you're saying as well, it's not it's not like you're saying something costs like 100 grand. Normally this is going to cost 300 grand. There's not a huge kind of burden there in terms of making it eco. So that's fantastic. And I could really imagine that people who have some money to invest, if you have the option to invest in something that's going to turn this profit or work with you, and you get similar profit, but also you have the knowledge that it's developing something that's really eco, and obviously looking towards the future of more of these projects being out there and becoming a bit more mainstream as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you'll then start to see that cost comparison kind of even out, where there's more demand for it and there's more systems and ideas on the market. But at the moment for a new build, comparably it's not like huge extortionate amount.
That is amazing. I thought you were going to say it's going to be a lot more, but that is and I think a lot of people, when they're looking at investments and stuff like that would allow them to kind of think to themselves, well, it is something to look at, it is something to consider. So that's amazing.
And it's definitely about the upfront gains, as I said, like finding somewhere where you can make good planning gain, but also as well the design process. As long it's about getting that right up front. So the research that I'm doing and then the people that I want to kind of work with to execute this, I feel like we can get this done with still a huge amount of profit, but obviously a big impact to whoever's involved as well.
Amazing. So thinking back then, so you obviously got this real passion for property, and especially the communal living, well, kind of creating communal spaces is more the thing, isn't it? And the kind of ecological side of it. So what first sparked your interest in property, and also thinking ahead to these kind of new builds with this ecological kind of slant?
So I suppose I find it also quite an interesting, exciting kind of movement at the moment. I love the whole, like I said, the whole side of things where you can be saving money, like for the people who live there. Like I was reading an article, and I can't remember what it was, but it was something about, is your home making you sick? And as I said, I have a real interest in naturopathic or functional medicine as well. So those kind of things have an interest in me, because you're always looking at the outside environment, your home, your inside environment, that has an impact on your well-being. So that was a real emphasis as to why I was drawn to like eco builds, because they're healthy homes for you. And the article that I saw, I said, well, is your home making you ill? And there was a study about these new builds that they weren't very well made, and they were causing the occupants, namely children, to have like asthma and allergies, because they have mold in the house that you perhaps can't see, or actual visible like black mold as well. So for me, things like that, it's just, you've just built a new house and it's not serving its purpose. So that's kind of like where it sparked my interest. One, I love architecture, I love interiors, and I love community. So it's kind of like bringing that all together in a big mixing pot, really.
Absolutely. That reminds me, I went to a friend's house a couple of years ago, and he just moved into a new build, and the walls was just so damp still. They actually ended up having to provide him with a dehumidifier because it was going moldy. And it was crazy. It was crazy to me that he'd just bought this house for like a decent amount of money, and it was just he couldn't put any, well, he couldn't like even put his sofa near to the wall. He couldn't put any pictures up. He couldn't do anything. He had to have this dehumidifier in just to try and dry it out a little bit. It was nuts.
It's madness. So so it's just those kind of things that I just want to take consideration about that, and thinking about the longevity of a building and how long it's got to stand for and who's going to live there, and trying to make it work, really. So that's really where my interest came from.
Yeah, it's amazing. Have you?
And Sarah Beanie when I was like 18.
I think Sarah Beanie's got a lot to answer for, I have to admit. Although I always remember on the programs she did, like she'd have all these great ideas, and then I remember the people were just like, nah, I'm just going to do what I was going to do anyway. They just ignored her, even though she's like got years and years of experience. They thought they knew better.
It's all funny, funny.
So have you, apart from obviously being a broker, have you done any other kind of training or anything like that around your property investment and obviously the stuff you've been researching yourself?
Yeah. So on the so the mortgage side, that's just kind of like ongoing learnings. It's always about, another thing about the mortgage side actually is that I kind of want to incorporate it to the property side as well. So it'll be about, so the webinar I mentioned earlier that the Green Aid is going to do on the property group that I'm in, is that I'm going to do a mortgage slot, but kind of aim it at kind of green mortgages, because they're making a bit of a thing on the market at the moment. So they'll be for like buy-to-let investors, where you could get perhaps a cheaper rate or potentially an incentive for having an EPC that's like A or B, for example, and you might get a cashback of like £1,500, or you might have another incentive. So so those type of things I just want to incorporate into like my whole business vision. So on the eco side, as I said, lots of free webinars and like self-build webinars. Oh, sorry, my phone's just making a noise. Sorry. Sorry, didn't realise I had it even on. I never had the phone on. So the sustainable side, as I said, there's a few courses that I've done on like passive house standards, mechanical ventilation, heat pump systems, just learning about that type of thing. The training on the property side, so I've done quite a lot of training, and I think that's evolved since when I first started out, where I was like, right, okay, I need to leave my job, I'm just going to do rent to rents, and like did a rent to rent course, and I was like, no, you're just like presented with all these shiny strategies, and you're like overwhelming, and you're and to be fair, it was kind of like it derails you for quite a bit, and you have to go, right, you have to like find your feet, find out what you're about, and then take a step back. And then that's when I was like, right,
totally agree with you. Agree with you.
It's full on. And so I decided, I took a breather after like 6 months of doing all the online networking and all the online courses I could find. And then I was like, well, this is what I want to do. The development side is key for me. So I am in the process. So I'm doing a developers course at the moment.
Oh, right.
And that is through Rosie Cassidy. I don't know if you've heard of her. No. It's like through Cassidy Group, and she's young, she's successful. I kind of like her ethos, and it's kind of coming at the development side for being that visionary, but you know the whole process. Obviously you really get to know how to find your deals and appraise them and all the planning games. So so I'm going through that course at the moment, which is
that sounds great.
So I finally found the course that I want to do after doing lots of courses.
I think that's something I think everybody, or maybe not everybody, but a lot of people experience when they first kind of think to themselves, property is the one. because there's so many different ways to do it, isn't there? And you think to yourself, oh yeah, like rent to rent or HMO or buy to, you know, there's all these different options. And like you say, it's so difficult sometimes to just think, I'm not going to do any of those ones. I'm going to focus on this thing that I actually.
Exactly. It was quite hard because, and then I had like a small investment pot, and I was like, okay, so I could do a buy to let up north, and I was like, but it's not. All I'm doing there is just ticking a box to say I've got the buy to let stripes, but it's not towards my like end goal and vision. So I've kind of like invested that, and then we'll look to just go straight in and do the land stuff. But to say that now I've got that vision, people have like come out of different networking groups or different property groups where I'm like kind of making key connections, where like forming partnerships and finding people that also have a shared vision, and that we are just going to like club together and build this out together with a few people rather than just doing it on my own. So it's kind of like now evolved because I put my energy into doing that rather than like chasing other things that I perhaps weren't aligned to. So it's good that I kind of tried and learned a few strategies and decided that I'm just going to stick with my 5-year goal, but just go straight in and learn that, because it's going to probably take me 5 years to get to it anyway. It's for the long game, and that's key to remember.
Exactly, yeah. But I think the thing there is now you have the vision, you know exactly what you should be saying yes to, which allows you to focus and put all the time in which you're doing, and it makes so much sense now. So
So I'm really happy that that's happened now, because when I first started, which I suppose this is a real key thing that many people probably potentially it happened to them as well, is you go straight in. I like created all my socials. I didn't really have a plan, and then I'm like, well, nothing really kind of aligned to what I wanted to do. So it's just taking a step back and reevaluating it, and now it's it's all come together. So don't rush ahead like I did is the main thing.
That's cool. I think sometimes people have to experience it and then realize to themselves like it happens so often, I think. But having that vision and that goal is great. Have you got any business or property books you kind of found really inspirational when you first read them, or you recommend to people?
So there's a few books. I kind of I really loved The Compound Effect. I've actually listened to that like 3 or 4 times now, because even just in whatever part of your business, or like your property business, or whatever you're doing in your current business or life, it's just about making those small steps. And that is just the kind of thing that has got me through. We're being so busy with just life, children, job, trying to do like multiple things. You just need to, like, that's probably the wrong way of doing it. You should probably just focus on one thing and get that right and then move on to the next. But it just didn't happen that way for me. So I had to be quite disciplined with just doing a little bit on each, but small incremental steps gets you there in the end. And it may have taken me nearly a year to move over to setting up my own broker business. That could have probably taken someone 2 months, but I got there in the end because I didn't give up. So The Compound Effect I think is a great one. I'm at the moment I'm reading this The Sexy Millionaire, which is
no, heard that one.
Although don't ask me for any of the authors, I'll have to send them to you. That one is about he does a podcast, the CEO podcast.
I've heard that. I've not listened to it, but I've heard that it's good.
But the book's really good because it's just about it's called The Sexy Millionaire because that's what he aspired to be, and that's not what he is. So it's kind of like you have this vision, but it doesn't work out like that. But again, that's just about pushing through and following your dreams and like making your actions count. So I'm very, very much into those kind of books. And there was another one as well, which is very similar, is the Slight Edge. Making those small steps. So those I think are really important, because all the once I read one property book, they kind of all have the same information in there. So it depends like what you're really into strategy wise, I suppose. But the key thing for me was all just about mindset and pushing through. So hence why I had 3 of those books. Yeah.
No, I think that's so important, because you're right. I mean, property books, a lot are rehashed, and if you're not interested in buy to let, there's not a lot of point of reading a book about buy to let or HMOs and something like that. So those sorts of books are really good. And I feel like I've read both The Slight Edge and The Compound Effect, and I feel like I should re-listen to them. It feels like one of those books that you should probably like listen to now and again, just to remind yourself of all the kind of key kind of points.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's lots of books that I've read early on that I'd like to go back to.
Yeah,
actually.
Same here. Yeah, same here.
Quite cute, yeah, to see how far you've come as well. Like, oh, actually, I did implement that. I didn't just.
It's like, why aren't I doing that thing? That would have saved me years. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so you mentioned a support group you were in earlier, but so them, I assume. But what other kind of people and professionals and support have you had along the way that has really helped you?
So I'm in a accountability group actually, and that's been quite key in moving me forward. I'm very much someone who can get distracted easily. So, and to be held accountable works quite well for me. I work well under pressure, and deadlines. So to have this group, and not everyone's property in it as well. So it's really good to watch everyone's like business grow and push forward. So the accountability group's been really, really amazing. And I said the support that I had with my current employer has been fab as well, because they've really understood where I want to be, and they're like really happy for where I'm moving on from. And yeah, just like the actual property industry, it's just, I know it's such a cliche, but everyone is so bloody friendly.
Yeah.
It's like, it's quite refreshing when you first come in as a newbie, how many people want to help you, and it's
no, it's
kind
very
of
nice.
Yeah, so even just having that support, and like I say, going into the whole developer then world, where it's quite, I suppose, male orientated even more so, and very like construction heavy. I feel like I've like quite slotted in quite well and get on like really well with everyone. Everyone again is like really happy to share. I invite myself to people's sites and go and look at like different constructions all around. So yeah, it's I think just asking in this industry gets you a long way.
No, sounds good. Cool. Okay. So final question. If you could speak to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell them? And would you listen? That's the other part to this.
To be fair, I probably wouldn't listen, which is really annoying, but but this was an easy one. I would just be like, finance, learn it, as in, oh God, I've not learned. I'm a mortgage broker, I should know this thing, but you don't. So what I've got out of learning about property and getting back into mortgages, mainly a property really, is like how to look after your own money, as in making it work for you, and just leveling up on all aspects of it. So putting a small amount away into investing and what you're going to get back from it. Like leveraging your pensions. Like I'm in the process of setting up a SAS. Obviously an 18-year-old is just gonna be like, pensions, boring, but I'm just like, it's so fascinating now. My whole world has been opened up just around money, just learning about money and like what you can do with it, rather than just plunk it up the wall. So finance for me is a massive one, and I think as a society and an education system, it's something that we lack in like massively. That's a whole nother conversation that I'm passionate about as well.
Yeah, no, I am too. I'm really passionate about it. And yeah, I don't think, I agree, the property world, and I'm sure if you get into business in other different areas, I'm sure you learn about it as well. But since I started learning about property, I see money totally differently. Totally.
Yeah. Madness.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just like shocked by the whole, like you don't get taught, like even just to like run again, like, so I'm starting from going from employed to self-employed to now like I've got to do a profit and loss and work out what I need to do to scrape by each month, or like break even, and just working all that kind of stuff out I just struggled with to begin with. So there's something that there's something missing in schools for sure. But there you go.
Absolutely.
Finance.
Totally, and I totally agree with you, but I don't know if I'd have listened when I was 18, but yeah, no, I agree. That is a really, really good point, and something that should be taught, but I don't think it will be.
No. It's down to us.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on. You've been an absolute pleasure. And we're going to try the Instagram live straight from this. So hopefully it works. Hopefully it will help more people find your episode as well. But apart from that, how can other people find you and see what you're up to?
Yeah, so so my main Instagram account is Fox Miller Properties. And although, so that's the main place, and I'm on LinkedIn under my own name, which is Samantha Demuth, and I'm on Facebook. So as I said, I've got a Facebook group if anyone's interested in like finding out a bit more about eco developing or hints and tips on what they can do on their current properties. And we're going to be having some live talks in there as well, and that's the sustainable property development for the 21st century. But right. I can put the links to you. Yeah, just send them over and I'll make sure they're in the description. Yeah, cool. Well, as I say, thank you again for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and bye for now. Thank you. Well, there you have it. There's the interview with Sam Demuth. I hope you enjoyed it. If you got value from it, please share the episode. And if you have any questions, please feel free to DM me on Instagram or email me at info@ecologically.co.uk, and I'll answer any questions we get as a part of the show. But that's it from me for now. Best of luck, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please leave me a 5-star review to help other people find it, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.